Well, hello there. How are you today? I'm Jane Hogan, and this is Wellness by Design. The last number of weeks I've been interviewing guests, but I thought today I would explain to you the whole philosophy behind this Wellness by Design program. So if you don't know anything about me, I am a civil engineer. I worked as a civil engineer for 30 years. Now I am a functional medicine certified health coach. And I did this total change because I suddenly developed crippling rheumatoid arthritis in 2016, and I was totally fine basically. And then I was nearly, within about 3 months, I was nearly disabled. And it took me on a total journey that actually changed my life, because I started reevaluating so many things in my life and realizing that I could create wellness again. So basically, now I am not disabled. I have a full and vibrant life again, and I have never taken any medication. And I've done this all through lifestyle changes and what I have learned. And now I'm just driven to share what I'm learning with other people. And that's why I have this Jane Hogan Health. That's why I am doing these videos and sharing this information, because I want other people to know that you don't have to be a victim of an illness, or even if it's not an illness, even if you're just feeling crappy in your body and you've got pains in your joints and you're feeling like this is an inevitable part of getting older. It doesn't have to be. You can be empowered in your health by designing. That's the wellness by design. You can design your wellness. You are in control. So I'm going to talk today a little bit about that. So I got some notes made to make sure I don't miss any key points. So first of all, know that I am not. Hi, Joanne. Nice to have you here. Know that I am not not a doctor. I am not a nutritionist, nothing like that. I'm just a lowly engineer and a woman who's really, I wanted to find answers. So here's the thing. This illness came on in my life. Hi, Anne. Nice to have you here. This illness came on in my life after a very stressful year. It was a very emotional, stressful year. And so I knew that this got turned on by stress. And stress is in our head. It's our thoughts. So I knew that if this illness could be turned on by thoughts, it should be able to be turned off as well. So that took me down this whole road of researching, and I've actually learned that there's a real connection between science and spirituality, and it's so interesting, and I think it's all coming together. So I'm trying to share what I've learned with you. Joanne says, and you're smart, educated health and wellness coach. I am. So I've learned a lot in my functional medicine certified training. I learned about the whole mind-body connection and a whole lot of other things, like getting at the root cause of illness instead of treating symptoms. So we need to get at the root cause of illness. So I know I talked to a lot of people with illness, and a lot of people say, especially like rheumatoid arthritis and autoimmune conditions, that it has come on after stressful events. So time and time again, people are sharing with me that it was a stressful event that turned on their illness. And we know that even things like heart disease, that is associated with people that are high stressed. So we know that there is this component, right? So that's not really anything new, but it's kind of like it was key for me in figuring things out. So stress basically is a thought in our head, and how we feel about the stress is really what's most important, because two people can be in the same stressful situation and one person isn't affected by it at all, and another person can be very stressed and very upset about it. So it's our individual thoughts about the stress that we're experiencing that is critical. So when we have a stressful thought, that causes our brain to release chemicals and hormones in our body, like cortisol. Cortisol is the stress hormone. So when that gets released into our body, it causes like a cascade of reactions. So some of the thoughts that really create a lot of stress in our body are things like fear, aggression, shame, guilt, suffering, unworthiness, sadness, and grief. All of these things can create that negative cascade of hormones being released in our body. Also affects our feelings. So, thoughts lead to feelings, and feelings are vibrations in our body. They actually create vibrations in our body. And so here's an interesting thing. We're made up of cells, right? Trillions and trillions of cells. Those cells respond to the environment in our body. Okay, so they respond to the environment, and the environment includes our thoughts and our feelings and all the other things that are in our external environment, our physical environment. So it actually causes, so within our cells, of course, there's DNA, so which is our genes. This environment can actually change gene expression. Okay, so our genes, if you think about, if you imagine our genes are kind of like a Christmas tree with light bulbs all over them. Genes can like turn on and turn off like light bulbs. So they're not set in stone. They can change. They can be expressed, turn on or off, and they can release proteins. Actually, what genes do and what DNA does is release proteins. You think about it. I don't know if any of you have inflammation, one of the things that's tested for in the blood is the presence of C-reactive protein. It's the protein. It's made by our genes, and it's an inflammatory protein, or it's an indicator that we've got inflammation in our body. The genes made that. It's made from our genes. It's a protein. Proteins are made by genes. That's the expression of life. So we know that the stress can cause our genes to express proteins that will lead to illness. That's the kind of mechanism. And again, I'm explaining this in a very simple way. It might not be perfectly scientifically accurate, but it's as from what I've done a lot of reading and research, and this is what I've seen. Okay, so this whole field of gene expression is called epigenetics. It started in around 1990, and now it's a leading edge hardcore science. They say that it's less than 2% of our genes are responsible for permanent coding. And there's very few illnesses, it's a handful of illnesses that are turned on only by a single gene. All the rest of the illnesses are turned on by, it's multiple genes kind of get turned on or express, releasing these proteins, creating illness. One doctor I was following, Dr. Bruce Lipton, said, cancer, for example, requires a minimum of 12 genes to turn on or start expressing in order for cancer to express. So quite interesting. So our genes can turn on or turn off or express, or another word that's used is upregulate. They can upregulate the genes for health or downregulate the genes for health. So the whole environment, they respond to the environment, and the environment is our thoughts, our feelings, as well as our physical environment. It's all of it together. Okay, so the good news in that is that for the most part, each one of us can control our environment. So it's actually pretty powerful. And I find this so amazing because when you get an illness, you tend to feel like a victim, and it's completely the opposite. It's completely the opposite. You are in a position of power because those genes turning off and on is a response to the environment, and you can control your environment. For the most part, you're in control of your environment. You can be in control of your thoughts. You can be in control of your feelings. You can be in control of your physical environment. So how about that? Instead of being a victim, you are empowered. Once you know this, the problem is we've been conditioned for a long time that we are not in control, that we are a victim. So it requires a change in thinking. I'm going to come back to that afterwards. So basically, thoughts create feelings, which then create actions or inactions. It affects our behavior, which then leads to a result in our life. So if we want to, and that gives us our destiny. So if we want to change our destiny, we have to come back to our thoughts and change our thoughts. So thoughts actually change gene expression. Here's the problem though. About 90% of our thoughts, like, I don't know, we think, I forget how many thousands of thoughts per day. I've heard different numbers, like 60,000, 80,000. Anyway, it's a lot of thoughts every day. 90% of those are repeated. They're repeated thoughts. So 90% of those are repeated. So you keep turning on the same genes by using the same thoughts. So in order to change the gene expression, we need to change thoughts. And another interesting thing is that about 70% of those thoughts are negative thoughts. So if we're creating negative thoughts, negative feelings, we're going to get negative gene expression, right? So it comes back to creating positive thoughts, because we want to have, if we want to change the results, we got to change our thoughts. Interesting thing is that a lot of our thoughts come from subconscious programming that's going on all the time. So that 90% of our thoughts are subconscious programming. And a lot of our subconscious programming, most of it, gets instilled in us before the age of 7. Isn't that wild? Before the age of 7. We didn't even really put those thoughts there. A lot of them were just put in by whoever our caretakers were before the age of 7, or whoever was influencing our little brains. So a lot of those subconscious thoughts and some subconscious programs and beliefs were put in our brains by other people before the age of 7. So to change that requires effort. It requires you to reprogram your brain with new thoughts that are positive, thoughts that are going to create positive gene expression so that you physically change. I know it sounds a little wild, but it's true. So here's the thing. Thoughts and feelings are energy. It's true. They can actually be measured outside of our body. So here's another wild kind of thing. This whole, I love this science, because this is where it really brings in the science and the spirituality together. So every part of us and everything around us is made of atoms. Now, we used to be told that atoms, there was a certain model of the atom, but there's now a newer theory of the atom and what it actually looks like. So the atom is actually 99.999999, something like 9 to the 15 or something like that. Anyway, space. 99.999999 space. So here's an idea, to give you an idea how much space there is in an atom. So imagine, so the atom has got a nucleus in the middle with the proton, the positive charge, and then it's got a cloud around it of electrons, which can either be in the form of energy or they can actually be a particle. So they call it like a wave or a particle. So here's the size of it. That nucleus where the proton is and where the most of the mass of the atom is about this. Let's look at this little analogy. So if that was the size of an SUV, okay, the whole size of the atom is about as big as Washington State. Okay, so that's my American friends. In Newfoundland, it would probably be like about twice the size of the island of Newfoundland. So that's how big, how much space there is in an atom. So in that space where we've got that little nucleus the size of the SUV, we got all this other space, that's where these electron particles are floating around as either potential, like a wave, or they are matter. So we're made up of these. So isn't it interesting to think of that we are actually 99.9999% space. And that space is energetic potential. That's why we respond to energy. That's why we are energy. It's so cool. So we respond to our thoughts, our electrical energy, right? That's measured. That can be measured with, attaching electrodes either onto our brain or even outside now. With the instruments they're getting, they can measure it further and further outside. We've got this energy going on in our brains. We've also got electromagnetic energy in our hearts. Our body is energy and it's responding to energy. So when we create thoughts, we create energy, we can actually change the expression of atoms so that those little electrons can actually become matter. And that's how we change physically. Okay, so they change from being energy to changing to being matter. I don't know if I'm doing a great job of explaining this little cursory lesson in quantum physics, but that's how it goes. Alrighty, so we can send out energy, which can make the electrons in the atoms, which are in our cells, which we are made up of. We can turn it into actual matter and change it. And that changes our genes, which changes the expression of the genes, which creates proteins, and proteins are the building blocks of life. Cool, hey? Oh, there's something I wanted to mention there. Right, so genes, I'm going to come back to this little point because I love this little analogy. Because I'm an engineer, we dealt with blueprints all the time. And if you think about the genes as being a blueprint, it's just a blueprint. That is not, the blueprint is not what physically gets built in the world. It can change, right? Because it gets interpreted by the contractor who's building it. And the body is like, our body is like the bricks and mortar that's being built from it. So depending on how the contractor interprets the blueprint, and think of now our mind, our brain, and our thoughts are like the contractor. It's interpreting that blueprint and then building it with physical building blocks, our proteins. That's how we get built. Okay, maybe I'm going a little too wild for some of you. We'll see. Alrighty, so here's the problem. We've got, as I said, this belief system that most of us have had all of our lives, and we've got a whole society based on a belief system that the cure for illness is outside of us and not within us. I know that it is within us. If we look at the placebo effect, is about 1/3 of all medical interventions are actually placebo effect. There's been tons of studies on this placebo effect. It is real. And this happens, like a placebo effect is basically when someone has a physical response to something that is not the real medical intervention. So in other words, they have a belief that they are taking something that's going to help them, and that manifests out as a physical change called spontaneous remission, for example. I think I think it's in medications for depression. It's like the placebo effect is equal to the taking a medication. So it's kind of wild, but it all comes to a belief. There's a really interesting documentary on Netflix called Heal. It's all about spontaneous remissions. So this is real. It's happening. But it requires a change in a belief system. Now, if you don't believe that this will work, it will not work. If you do believe that it works, it will work. And you have to keep getting those thoughts into the positive expression of your genes so that they will express in the way you want them to. So you need to reprogram your thoughts and you create a new life. You can create wellness again, design wellness, right? Wellness by design. So you're going to change the gene expression. So you're going to turn off or down-regulate the genes for illness and up-regulate the genes for wellness. On top of that, you change your feelings and behavior, so then you make better choices that's going to support your body in healing, because we do have a physical body as well that it's wired for wellness, and so we need to allow it to heal. So we need to do the other physical things as well in our physical environment. We need to give ourselves food that's going to serve our body and allow it to heal. We need to provide an environment and relationships and movement and all of these other things that allow the body to heal. So it kind of comes together. So this is what I actually teach for my clients and the Women of My Wonderful Fine program. I'm teaching how to rewire the brain for wellness, redesign wellness, and I'm teaching what physical choices in the physical environment we also need to make to support healing. So this is it's not magic. It's actually a controllable, it's a method that you can use to create wellness, to design wellness by design. So you can all be designers and do this. It's not a complicated process, but it takes effort. It takes effort because you got to change your thoughts. All righty, so let me know what you thought of this. If it's the first time you've been hearing anything like this, then you might think it sounds a little woo-woo and wacky, but trust me that there's science backing this up. There are scientific studies backing this up more and more. It's growing all the time. And there's a growing awareness that we are in control of our destiny. So with our health and with every other aspect of our life as well. That's a beautiful thing, because it's not just our health, it's everything. So I hope you found this informative. If you are interested in talking with me a little bit more about it and about how it could help you personally, how you could design wellness in your life, you can schedule a call with me. So just go to janehoganhealth.com/connect, and you can set up a free 30-minute conversation with me, and I can talk to you a little bit about how I do this, what your background is, how it could help, and I can assess, how you feel about this and how ready you are to take on this changing your belief system, because that's really what we're working on. All right, my friends, have a lovely day. Thank you for listening. Thank you for joining me in Wellness by Design today, and I'll see you again next week, same time. Bye.